If you're a green card holder and you've been seeing posts about a March 15th, 2026 deadline that could affect your status, I know exactly how you're feeling right now. Your heart probably sank when you first saw those headlines. Maybe you've been losing sleep, wondering if you need to do something urgent, if your permanent residence is suddenly at risk, or if there's some new rule that changes everything overnight. You're not alone in feeling this confusion and fear. And that's exactly why we're here today. In the next few minutes, we're going to cut through the noise, separate fact from fiction, and give you the clarity you deserve about what this deadline actually means, who it truly affects, and most importantly, why the vast majority of green card holders can take a deep breath because you are safe. Let me start by saying something that might immediately ease some of that tension you've been carrying. The overwhelming majority of lawful permanent residents in the United States are not affected by any March 15th, 2026 deadline in a way that threatens their green card status. This is not a mass purge. This is not a sudden change in immigration law that puts millions of people at risk. Immigration law in the United States does not work that way. Changes to immigration law, especially changes that would affect permanent residents, go through extensive legislative processes, regulatory procedures, and legal challenges that take months or even years to implement. So, if you woke up one morning to viral social media posts claiming that green cards are suddenly in danger, please understand that this is not how the American legal system operates. Now, let's talk about what this March 15th deadline actually refers to, because there is real information here that certain people do need to understand: the truth. Most green card holders are safe, but context is everything. In the current immigration enforcement environment, there have been various policy discussions, proposed regulations, and enforcement priorities that have created confusion. Some of these discussions have involved deadlines for compliance with certain reporting requirements, updates to biometric appointments, responses to requests for evidence in pending applications, or deadlines related to specific visa categories or conditional residence situations. The key is understanding which category applies to you, if any. Let's break down the most common scenarios where a deadline like March 15th might actually matter. First, if you are a conditional permanent resident, meaning you received your green card through marriage and you've been a permanent resident for less than 2 years, you have specific requirements. Conditional residents must file Form I-751, the petition to remove conditions on residents within the 90-day period before their conditional green card expires. If your conditional green card has an expiration date near March 15th, 2026, and you're within that 90-day filing window, then yes, you have a deadline to pay attention to. But this is not new. This is not a change in the law. This has been the requirement for conditional permanent residents for decades. Missing this deadline can result in the termination of your permanent residence, which is serious, but it's also completely avoidable by filing on time. If you're in this situation, you should already have received notices from USCIS. And if you haven't filed yet and your deadline is approaching, you need what this deadline actually refers to consult with an immigration attorney immediately. Second, some individuals may have received specific notices from USCIS requesting additional evidence for a pending application, or notices to appear for biometric appointments, or notices regarding address changes and updates to their immigration records. These notices come with specific deadlines, and if your particular notice happens to have a deadline of March 15, 2026, then that deadline applies to you personally based on your individual case. But again, this is not a blanket deadline affecting all green card holders. This is standard immigration processing. USCIS sends millions of notices every year with various deadlines. If you received a notice, it will clearly explain what you need to do and by when. If you're unsure about any notice you've received, the right step is to consult with a licensed immigration attorney who can review your specific situation. Third, there has been discussion in certain policy circles about enhanced vetting procedures, updates to background check requirements, or new reporting obligations for certain categories of non-citizens. Some of these discussions have mentioned implementation timelines or compliance deadlines. However, and this is crucial, Discussion of a policy is not the same as implementation of a policy. A proposed regulation is not the same as a final regulation. A policy memo is not the same as enforceable law. For any new requirement to actually bind lawful permanent residents, it must go through the proper regulatory process, which includes public notice, a comment period, legal review, and publication in the Federal Register. As of today, there is no published final regulation that creates a March 15, 2026 deadline that affects the general population of lawful permanent residents. Now, let's address what I think is driving most of the fear and confusion around this topic, and that's the viral spread of misinformation on social media platforms. Immigration is one of the most discussed and most misunderstood topics in American public discourse. When there are political debates about immigration policy, when new enforcement priorities are announced, or when politicians propose legislation, these stories get amplified, distorted, and sometimes completely misrepresented as they spread across social media. A conditional permanent residence and Form I-751 proposal becomes reported as a done deal. A discussion becomes reported as a new law. A deadline that affects a small specific group becomes reported as a deadline that affects everyone. This is how panic spreads. And this is exactly why channels like U.S. Immigration Update exist to give you accurate, verified, fact-based information so you can make informed decisions about your life. Let me be very clear about how immigration law actually changes in the United States. Congress passes legislation. The president signs it into law. Federal agencies like USCIS, ICE, and CBP create regulations to implement that legislation. Those regulations go through a formal process. Courts review challenges to those regulations. This process is slow, deliberate, and public. You will know when immigration law changes because it will be published in official government sources, analyzed by immigration attorneys across the country, and reported by credible news organizations with specific details about who is affected, when it takes effect, and what you need to do. Immigration law does not change in secret. It does not change overnight, and it certainly does not change through social media posts. So, who actually needs to be concerned about immigration deadlines in general, even if March 15, 2026 is not a universal deadline? Let's go through the categories of people who should always be vigilant about their immigration status and timelines. If you are a conditional permanent resident, you must track your green card expiration date and file to remove conditions on time. If you have any pending applications with USCIS, such as an application for naturalization, a petition for a family member, or a request for a travel document, you must respond to any requests for evidence by the deadlines stated in those notices. If you have been ordered to appear before an immigration judge, you must appear on the date specified or risk being ordered removed in absentia. If you are required to register with any government program, such as certain individuals from designated countries under historical programs, you must comply with those requirements. If you plan to travel outside the United States, and you've been outside the country for extended periods, you need to understand the rules about maintaining your permanent individual USCIS notices and specific deadlines residence and avoiding abandonment of status. But here's what's important to understand. All of these requirements are specific, individualized, and come with clear notice to the person affected. If you are a regular, lawful, permanent resident who received your green card years ago, who lives in the United States, who files your taxes, who hasn't committed any crimes, and who hasn't received any notices from USCIS or immigration court, then you are not suddenly at risk because of a viral deadline post on social media. Your green card does not expire in the sense that your status ends. The physical card expires and needs to be renewed for identification purposes, but your permanent residence continues as long as you don't abandon it or violate the terms that could make you removable. Let's talk about what actually makes a green card holder removable from the United States, because understanding this helps you understand your rights and protections. A lawful permanent resident can be placed in removal proceedings if they commit certain crimes, if they engage in fraud or misrepresentation in obtaining immigration benefits, if they vote illegally in federal elections, if they fail to register with Selective Service when required, if they become a public charge under certain specific circumstances that involve fraud, or if they abandon their permanent residence by moving abroad permanently. These are the actual grounds of removability established in federal law. A random deadline on social media is not a ground of removability. A viral post is not immigration law. For those of you who are worried about your status, let me give you some practical guidance on what you should actually be doing to protect your permanent residence. First, maintain your residence in the United States. This means living here, working here, filing your taxes here, and not spending extended periods abroad that could suggest you've abandoned your permanent residence. If you need to travel outside the U.S. for more than 6 months, you should consult with an immigration attorney before you go to understand how to preserve your status. Second, keep your green card valid. The card itself needs to be renewed every 10 years. This is just an identification document renewal, not a renewal of your status, but you should file Form I-90 to renew your card before it expires. Proposed versus actual immigration law. Third, stay out of trouble. This means obeying all laws because certain criminal convictions can make you deportable even as a permanent resident. Fourth, respond to all government notices promptly. If USCIS, ICE, or immigration court sends you anything, do not ignore it. Fifth, keep good records. Keep copies of your immigration documents, your tax returns, your employment records, your lease agreements, and anything else that proves your continuous residence in the United States. And here's something really important that doesn't get said enough in these discussions. If you are eligible for U.S. citizenship, you should seriously consider naturalizing. Becoming a U.S. citizen provides the strongest possible protection against changing immigration policies, enforcement priorities, and all the uncertainty that comes with being a permanent resident. As a citizen, you cannot be deported except in the extremely rare cases involving fraud in obtaining citizenship. As a citizen, you have full rights to vote, to petition for family members with shorter wait times, to travel without worrying about abandoning residence, and to live with the peace of mind that your status in this country is permanent and secure. Naturalization is not mandatory, and there are valid reasons why some permanent residents choose not to naturalize. But if you've been a green card holder for 5 years or 3 years, if you obtained your green card through marriage to a U.S. citizen and you meet the other requirements, this is one of the best steps you can take to protect yourself and your family. Now, I want to address the elephant in the room, which is the current political environment and why it's causing so much anxiety in immigrant communities. We are in a time of intense political debate about immigration. There are proposals, counter-proposals, executive actions, legal challenges, and daily news cycles that can make it feel like the ground is constantly shifting under your feet. I understand that fear, but I also want to remind you that the United States has a legal system with checks and balances. Courts review executive actions. Congress must pass legislation. Regulations must follow proper procedures. Your rights as a lawful permanent resident are protected by law, and those laws cannot be changed or ignored without process. Does this mean why social media spreads immigration misinformation you should be complacent? Absolutely not. You should stay informed, know your rights, and be prepared. But it also means you should not live in constant panic based on rumors and unverified claims. If you see a post on social media claiming that all green card holders must do something by a certain deadline, here's what you should do. First, check official government sources. Visit USCIS.gov, which is the official website of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Check for any alerts, policy updates, or notices that apply to your situation. Second, look for credible news reporting from established news organizations that cite specific sources and provide details. Third, consult with a licensed immigration attorney if you have any specific concerns about your case. Do not rely on advice from random people online, from well-meaning friends who aren't immigration lawyers, or from anyone who claims to have inside information without providing verifiable sources. Immigration law is complex, and your status is too important to base decisions on rumors. Let me also say something about immigration attorneys because I know legal help can be expensive and not everyone can afford it. But there are resources available. Many communities have nonprofit organizations that provide free or low-cost immigration legal services. The American Immigration Lawyers Association maintains a lawyer referral service. Some attorneys offer free initial consultations. If you received a notice from USCIS or Immigration Court and you don't understand it, finding a way to consult with a qualified attorney is not optional. It's necessary. Your immigration status affects your ability to live, work, and remain with your family in this country. It's worth the investment to get proper legal advice when you need it. For those of you watching who are family members of green card holders, maybe you're a U.S. citizen spouse or child who's worried about your loved one, here's what you need to know. Your family member's permanent residence is governed by law, not by panic. The best thing you can do is help them stay organized. Make sure they respond to any official notices they receive. Encourage them to naturalize if they're eligible and support them in consulting with an attorney if there's any confusion about their status. What doesn't help is sharing unverified information, spreading fear, or making decisions based on incomplete understanding of complex legal issues. I also want to take a moment to talk about the broader picture of why misinformation about immigration spreads so quickly and causes so much harm. Immigration status is tied to people's deepest fears and hopes. It's about whether you can stay in the country you've built your life in, whether your family can remain together, whether you can work, and how immigration law actually changes in the U.S. provide for your children, whether you're safe. When people are afraid, they're more likely to believe alarming information, to share it with others in their community, and to make rushed decisions without proper verification. This is human nature and it's understandable. But it's also dangerous because it can lead people to fall for scams, to pay money to fraudulent notarios who claim they can help, to make immigration decisions that actually harm their cases, or to live in unnecessary fear that affects their mental health and well-being. This is why fact-based immigration information is so critical, and it's why we're committed to providing it on this channel. Every video we create is researched, fact-checked, and designed to give you accurate information you can rely on. We're not here to get clicks through fear. We're not here to spread rumors. We're here to help you understand what's actually happening, what actually applies to you, and what you actually need to do. So let's come back to the specific question that brought you to this video. March 15th, 2026, immigration deadline. Are you safe as a green card holder? Here's the bottom line. If you have not received any individual notice from USCIS, if you are not a conditional permanent resident approaching the deadline to remove conditions, if you do not have any pending applications with approaching deadlines, and if you are living in the United States as a lawful permanent resident without any criminal issues or other complications, then there is no general March 15, 2026 deadline that puts your green card at risk. Most green card holders are safe because most green card holders are simply living their lives, following the rules and maintaining their status the way they always have. What you should do is what you should always do. Keep your address updated with USCIS by filing Form AR11 whenever you move. Keep your green card current by renewing it before the 10-year expiration. Maintain your residence in the United States. File your taxes every year. Stay out of legal trouble. Respond promptly to any government notices you receive. And if you're eligible, consider applying for citizenship to gain the strongest possible protection and peace of mind. Immigration law is complex and the current environment is stressful, but knowledge is power. Understanding your rights, knowing where to get reliable information, and having access to legal help when you need it are your best who needs to worry about immigration deadlines, defenses against fear and misinformation. You have worked hard to build your life in this country. You deserve to live without constant panic about your status. And while you should always stay informed and be appropriately cautious, you should not let viral rumors control your life or steal your peace. If you found this breakdown helpful, please subscribe to U.S. Immigration Update right now. We are committed to bringing you clear, accurate, fact-based immigration information every single time policies are proposed, rumors spread, or confusion arises. Share this video with other green card holders in your life who might be worried about this March 15th deadline. Help us spread accurate information instead of fear. and leave a comment below letting us know if you have questions about green card renewal, conditional residence, naturalization, or any other aspect of maintaining your permanent resident status. We read every comment, and your questions help us create the content that serves this community best. You are not alone in navigating this system, and we are here to help you every step of the way with the facts, the context, and the clarity you deserve.